running up on the block, you know what I'm saying? Yo, still, they came around looking for you the other day. Word, bust it.
Informer, you know, say that I'm a stormy, I go blam. I like you boom boom down. Take the man that say that I'm a stormy, stamp somewhere down the lane. I like you boom boom down. Informer, you know, say that I'm a stormy, I go blam. I like you boom boom down. Take the man that say that I'm a stormy, stamp somewhere down the lane. I like you boom boom down. These time I'm gonna come in and they blow down my door. Rain you can pour through my window, so they put me in the back the car at the station. From that point on, I reached my destination.
You are listening to a free edition of the Wrestling Informer here on the Dirty Sheets podcast. This is usually a paywall show available on the Dirty Sheets Patreon by either going to the Patreon or thedirtysheets.com. But we are doing it for free. Last night was an eventful SmackDown. We also have the Elimination Chamber coming up. And at the moment, it's very difficult to get news because the WWE are changing everything constantly. Plans for WrestleMania, in terms of what they're doing with the main event, still weren't finalised going into yesterday's TV taping. There would have been discussions at the TV taping yesterday, and I imagine things would have been finalised either yesterday or they'll be finalised this morning. They are still working towards two different ideas, two different cards. We broke this over on the original Wrestling Informer when we talked about WrestleMania over a week ago. We spoke about why The Rock was back, and he's back because they are not selling tickets. They are not selling tickets for WrestleMania. They are still at Configuration 1. Configuration 1 is 51,000. They're currently on 45,000, which was a red hot start. You sold a lot of pre-sale tickets. You sold a lot of combo packs when tickets were originally released without just being combo tickets, single night tickets. They sold really well as well, and the two nights were neck and neck. One was slightly ahead. Night two did a few more, but only a round about 1,000 more. So it was very tight. 45,000 approximately for each night was a solid start. Over 90,000 tickets sold for the two nights was a good start heading into the Royal Rumble, and then it suddenly petered out. Combined across the two nights, we've only added just over 500 ticket sales. And the Elimination Chamber was also struggling, and they've managed to sell an additional 2,000 tickets since The Rock was announced for the show. Absolutely nothing really significant since the Royal Rumble, between the Royal Rumble and The Rock returning, but 2,000 more since The Rock was added. But that's it. You can still get tickets to the Elimination Chamber relatively easily. And as I said, WrestleMania sits at Configuration 1 with the target being 51,000. That is the absolute minimum. Now, NFL games get around about that, but they don't sell tickets to the floor. WWE still have a second configuration of 60,000. And then when we get to 60,000, we can start looking at the real target, which is 71,500, which is when you don't tape off the really high seats. And when you start selling seats around the screen and around the set and around the hard cam as well. We are nowhere near that point. So WrestleMania will need a significant main event, and they will need to create significant intrigue, which is why this story about Drew McIntyre being in the WrestleMania main event, being The Rock's corporate champion, simply isn't true. Now, you guys know there's no point in me denying the fact that I do have a line to Drew McIntyre. That's something that I've been able to utilize for over 15 years. But I've always told you that it hasn't been a significant source of information. Yes, I can get one or two questions answered. I can get hints as to whether I should or shouldn't be attending a show, whether it's going to, shall we say, reach my expectations or not reach my expectations. But sometimes, and actually very often, I know more creative information than Drew does, even about his own character, even about his own direction and storylines. And in this instance, I asked the question, and I did not get a positive response about whether he was or wasn't winning the chamber. I also went to the source of the story. Now, I don't know this guy, Chris Featherstone, but I do know he works with Vince Russo. And when I inquired through Vince Russo subsequently told me that he was the guy that gave it to Featherstone. And when I said, wow, how did you get that? He said it was from a deep source within the WWE. Now, I love Vince Russo and would happily do a show with him any day of the week. Me and Russo didn't part ways because of any kind of significant falling out. We parted ways based on creative direction. Russo was very, very happy with his show and what he made from it and the format of it. But for me, that did not play into growth. That did not play into Russo having the ability to pay the other contributors on his show more. He was happy with what he was making, but he didn't feel the need to grow the shows in order for everybody else to make more money, because he didn't want to bring in that casual audience. He didn't want to bring in that mark audience. And I understand that. This guy's over 60 years old. He wants peace. He doesn't want to deal with these fucking losers that are obsessed with wrestling who sit on the internet all day. And he wanted his podcast to stay where it is. He makes a decent amount of money for himself. Don't forget, this guy had a successful run in the wrestling industry, was paid a lot of money to move over to WCW. And if he has been responsible with his money, he doesn't need to do anything. So his money just comes in to pay the bills nicely, and he doesn't need to grow it. So that's what we not necessarily fell out over. That's what we disagreed on, because I was interested in making the brand, Russo's brand, a much bigger thing, and producing more free content to advertise what we do, talk about the success of the stories that I had dropped on the Nitty Gritty Dirt show. And Russo wanted to keep everything solely behind a paywall and not really do anything for free, where we advertised or promoted our successes to bring in more traffic, because that would have opened the door to more morons that he didn't want to deal with. And I get it, but that's the inside scoop on that. Not that it's a scoop, I've spoken about it multiple times. There isn't really even a significant falling out with K100, believe it or not, while some things were said. I was growing tired of the audience. I was growing tired of Conan's timekeeping. In Conan's defense, a lot of the times he was late was due to dialysis appointments. But at the end of the day, we have a West Coast USA, UK time difference. And when you're telling me to come on shows at 4 p.m, 5 p.m. your time, that's midnight, 1 a.m. for me. When you push them back, that becomes 2 a.m, 3 a.m, 4 a.m. I already hate your audience. I already am not massively enamored with the product. I was sold on doing a K100 sports show, but in even doing that, I wasn't happy with the format of the show, just based on the fact that they didn't do a format. The way that show is run is very much a case of just going with the flow. And I take sports betting too seriously to go with the flow. I come in with stats. I come in with data. I come in with angles. I come in with form guides. I come in with every possible metric that's relevant to making successful sports betting picks. And that's not what was happening the other end. And they underestimated how seriously I would take that. And they did not enjoy doing that show with those guys, as I felt like it damaged my credibility and reputation as a successful sports bettor. I don't mind talking about sports with anybody, but if you're going to make it a sports betting show, you need to do the work. You need to be prepared. There needs to be a format. You can't just wing it like you do with your other shows. If you're able to do that for wrestling, that's absolutely fine, but you're not going to do it with sports betting when my main income comes from sports betting. So you can see the issues there. I've not hidden them. There hasn't been any falling out. There hasn't been any, you're fired from this show. That hasn't happened anywhere. Not at Sportskeeda, not at Ringside, not at WrestleZone, not with Raj Giri at Wrestling Inc. He's the main one. That's the main one that's closest to me being let go, because he gave us an ultimatum to change our podcast, for me and Cav to calm down what we said, to be less controversial with our takes. And I subsequently told him to shove Wrestling Inc. up his arse. So that's the closest I've come from being let go from anywhere. And why would anybody let me go? Anyway, I'm coherent. I make interesting points. I do interesting content. Everywhere I go, people engage with what I have to say. My news is accurate. I'm the most accurate wrestling news source in the world with the highest accuracy percentage. So no one's going to fire me from their shows. That's fucking delusional. So that's a bit of insight into the Russo situation and why I am still talking to Vince. I talk to Vince all the time via email or via text, and he asks constantly about my son. Him and my son share the same birthday. So we have a good relationship there, but that's why I'm comfortable in saying this. Russo's never been a guy in my time since knowing him that broke any news. I was on his show to give him the news. I was the insider on his show. I was the main part of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Show. Now, Vince is integral to every single show on the brand. It doesn't work without Vince there. If there's any show on Russo's brand which Russo's not on, I don't think it's interesting. I think he carries a lot of people on that show. I think he carries Stevie Ray. I think he carries Bin Hameen. I don't find Bin Hameen interesting whatsoever. And me and Russo's show wouldn't have worked without the chemistry between me and Russo. So let me say that. But he did not bring the news portion of that show to the table. I don't believe that anybody inside the WWE is talking to Russo other than wrestlers who may be exchanging creative ideas with him. I know multiple wrestlers that have done that. I can mention Bray Wyatt because Bray Wyatt's passed away and it won't matter. I can also mention Elias because he's been released now from WWE. But there are other people there that do reach out to Russo. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. So I know there's wrestlers talking to him for his creativity, but I don't know if anybody is leaking booking ideas to Vince Russo. So when Russo said to me, when I asked him about Chris Featherstone, and Russo said to me, I'm the one that gave that to him, that suddenly made me doubt it even more. And I was already doubting it based on the fact that I reached out to McIntyre and didn't really get anything positive back. Now, am I being worked by Drew? Does Vince Russo have the scoop of the year? And has he handed it over to Chris Featherstone, which is going to be the making of Chris Featherstone as a credible source in wrestling? If that's even a thing, because I've broke many, many stories, and yet the dirt sheets are still obsessed with your Wrestle Votes, Dave Meltzer, and Sean Ross Sapp. Three guys or three sources that are wrong all of the time. They are less than 50%. I don't even think, in Meltzer's case, he's way below 25%. Sapp reports very, very safe, uninteresting bullshit. And PWI, they are the one, not PWI, that's Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Who am I thinking about? Mike Johnson. What is Mike Johnson's website called again? Why has that popped out of my head? Fuck, it really shouldn't have done, considering I cover wrestling news. I don't know what Mike Johnson's website's called. It's popped out of my head completely. I'm just having a complete brain freeze, and I know I'm going to remember it straight away as soon as we stop recording. But Mike Johnson, he's as high as it goes percentage-wise for those that I do deem to be credible. I think Meltzer's bottom of the barrel, just hovering above being 10% right. Sapp, he's a little bit higher, but he reports crap that nobody cares about, just real nonsensical bits, and then also gives a lot of his opinions as news, saying stuff like, oh, we spoke to a source and the feeling is this. And if, listen, someone's feelings, first of all, it's not true. You didn't speak to anybody. But second of all, people's backstage feelings is not a story. Give me something that's going to happen and then we see it translate to a fact on TV. Give me something like Tiffany winning the Money in the Bank and going on to face Charlotte. Give me something like WWE doing a deal with sports organizations across the world for the belt deals that they do, where they release the championship belts for the NFL, NBA, etc. Break the story about WWE doing that deal. Give me contract news that you actually know, that I report constantly. Give me some real things that are going to happen. Give me some results. Give me some matches. You don't get any of that with Sean Ross Sapp. It's all a load of fluff and bullshit, which is how he keeps his percentage even close to 50%. But Johnson, I give him credit. He's over 50%. WrestleVotes used to but I know WrestleVotes lost a significant leaker. I know Jimmy Jacobs was someone that was involved with feeding WrestleVotes stuff, and WrestleVotes has pretty much gone down the toilet in the last 12 months. So, yeah, Mike Johnson, probably the best other than myself, and after that, it's pretty much a shit show. And it really has been a shit show in regards to this current WrestleMania, but there's two things in play here. Number one, since Triple H took over, he made a conscious effort to, A, make sure things didn't get out, so to keep the information within a smaller group, and B, to also actively put out leaks to the dirt sheets that would be proven to be incorrect. The other aspect in play here is the fact that Triple H has messed up this WrestleMania. Since The Rock confirmed that he wasn't going to be wrestling on the show, things have been very, very fluid. Things have been moving around. Things have been changed. And as we're recording this show, this may have changed overnight. As we're recording this show, as we were going into SmackDown, there were still two cards on the table. Two different challenges for Cody Rhodes. But my understanding is that they were CM Punk and John Cena. And neither of those were Drew McIntyre. So in card A, as I broke previously over on the Informer a while ago, card A still has John Cena taking on Cody Rhodes, has Jey Uso challenging Gunther, and has a triple threat match between CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns at the top of the card. We also mentioned other matches, but that's over on the Informer. I'm going to leave that exclusive. And card B has CM Punk challenging Cody Rhodes for the championship. Instead, it still has Jey versus Gunther. Unfortunately, Roman Reigns and Seth becomes a one-on-one contest, and John Cena goes on to face Logan Paul instead. In card A, Logan Paul is somewhat left out in the cold. You need to go quite far down the card to find where Logan Paul fits in. So he is the most significant victim of in terms of difference between card A and card B. Although I imagine Rollins versus Roman, whilst actually being more interesting to me than the three-way, won't main event any of the nights of Mania. You are going to end up going with the two title matches, whilst if it ends up being the A card, the triple threat match is going to main event one of the nights. Jey Uso and Gunther's going to main event one of the nights, and Cody and John Cena was supposed to be an opening match. Now, is that going to be because Cody Rhodes tells The Rock to shove his offer up his arse, and The Rock starts punishing him not only on television but then at WrestleMania by making Cody's title the opening match? Because he didn't become The Rock's champion, The Rock's that championship is defended in the opening match because The Rock has control over who main events and who gets the main event money, and he then gives that to his cousin Roman Reigns. Is that a thing? What's very interesting about this whole storyline with The Rock is how it sort of plays into real life in the most weirdest and somewhat sadistic way. Now, WWE, one of the things that people don't understand about it when you explain it to casual fans, if you even bother to explain it to them, I think I've reached the point where I don't give a fuck what people think. Like, if you don't watch it, fine. You got your opinion about it. I had some idiot the other day on Instagram when I posted something from wrestling telling me, oh, I haven't watched that since I was 12. Listen, I don't give a fuck. Like, this is a guy who constantly posts about cars, and spending thousands of pounds to make his engine rev louder. And I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in the other things that he does as well, such as taking copious amounts of steroid, which has decimated his hairline in order to exchange it for a steroided up body. Like, these are things I'm not interested in, but I don't turn around and say, hey, you're an idiot for taking steroids, or you're an idiot for wasting that money on your car. People like to butt in everything. That's the thing that social media has brought to the table. People think they have the right to have an opinion on everything. People are experts at everything. Brings in the saying like jack of all trades, masters of none. That is what social media has brought to the forefront. Everybody's an expert without actually knowing fuck all. And my feelings about you about how you feel about wrestling are no, I don't give a fuck. That's essentially how it is. I've never given a fuck. I never gave a fuck when I was at the height of my fame. Coming off reality TV, the biggest show in the country, 8 million people gives you the capacity to take home as many women as you want to take home. And I fucked them in my bed, which was surrounded by signed wrestling memorabilia. So you had me and the girl in the middle of the bed, and around us you had signed pictures of Stone Cold Steve Austin and Hulk Hogan and Brock Lesnar, and I did not give a fuck then, and I do not give a fuck now. That's it. That's the bottom line. So, as I said, wrestling, getting back to my point, wrestling always kind of tries to mimic what is happening in real life. You have shades of real life playing out in this episodic soap opera. And a real life thing that's happening in the world at the moment is this sort of rise that there is an Illuminati, that there is a group of people, be it celebrities, who are paid off, who sell their souls to those higher up. And a lot of these accusations are aimed at the Jews. People say that that there are high-powered Jews who make a lot of decisions in the entertainment industry and the music industry, and it's controlled by them, and they are devil worshippers, and the likes of Beyonce and Diddy and Jay-Z and all of these people sold their souls. That's important. And this is a real thing that's spoken about in real life. Go and have a look at the narrative online about Beyonce and the people who bow down to Beyonce and worship Beyonce. And Beyonce is seen as the Illuminati queen as such. That's a real thing. What about all of these people who were submissive to Diddy? What about the Epstein files? This is all big news. And there are lots of conspiracy theories surrounding that. So it's very odd to me that The Rock would cast himself in the role of Diddy in this weird kind of real life meets wrestling kind of storyline, because The Rock is out there doing Disney movies, and The Rock is out there, with a massive Hollywood career to protect. And it's very interesting to see how The Rock comes onto television and plays this even more twisted version of the final boss when, he didn't want to play the final boss at all anymore because obviously we had the live action Moana and he pretty much squashed it in January. Then he suddenly changes his mind, but still decides that he's going to cut a press conference where he makes it very, very clear this is a role. So he wants to double protect himself to make sure. So whilst at first he didn't want to do it, he thinks he's found the solution by, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it in an even more sadistic way if we are kind of mimicking real life. But then I'm also going to squash it to make and ensure that the mainstream media completely understand that this is an act and this is just another role, which I know the wrestling fans aren't thrilled about. But I'd rather have The Rock on WWE than not. And this is the only storyline that's made WrestleMania remotely interesting, because I was honestly on the verge of refunding my hotels, not booking my plane ticket, and not buying tickets to the show because it was underwhelming. The Rock has changed all that, whether you like it or not. But it's very strange. It centers around this kind of Illuminati version of the final boss, this kind of sell your soul Diddy-esque kind of storyline. And what makes it even more crazy for me yesterday is that The Rock posted a picture of himself with Travis Scott. Now, that's interesting to me because Travis Scott is massively linked with being a Illuminati devil-worshipping sellout. Whether it be from his music or whether it be from the death at one of his concerts where somebody died and Travis Scott continued to perform, which made many people jump to the accusation that was a sacrificial killing to whoever Travis Scott sold his soul to. That was a real thing, and Travis Scott is heavily accused of that. So what does The Rock do? The Rock promotes the Elimination Chamber by posting a picture of himself with Travis Scott. So that to me is absolutely insane. It's like you're playing in to this story even more. So rather it than just being some sort of wild conspiracy theory, or not even conspiracy theory, just a theory in general that WWE are kind of touching on this real life thing, and maybe, you know, anybody can accuse me of saying, oh, you're looking into this too deeply. This is just Austin versus McMahon rehashed and you're overthinking it, you're giving them too much credit. Well, the Travis Scott Rock photo kind of tells you something different completely. So, and then last night we saw the thing with Rock and Cody, with his dad, and the oohs and the ahs when he said this is Dusty's day, of the day Dusty died, the day my heart broke, etc. I think that's something very different from what The Rock pitched a year ago, just under a year ago, when he said, "Don't break my heart again." I think that storyline has changed due to The Rock's non-availability. I think what Cody Rhodes broke his heart over was something different. I don't think The Rock put the watch in his hand either, which is something that he said was what he put in his hands. But now I believe that's just something that's evolved. I think initially there was a different idea as to what The Rock put in his hands. I think there was a different idea as to how Cody broke his heart. But we've moved away from it because they are not doing the match anymore. And I'm going to double down on why they're not doing the match. They're not doing the match because this was the match that The Rock was supposed to lose. The Rock was supposed to pin Cody Rhodes last year. When they changed course and didn't do Rock versus Roman, they changed course with Brian Gerwitz heavily involved as The Rock's representative to try and pitch an alternative storyline. What they landed on was The Rock pinning was the Cody Rhodes winning the championship, but The Rock pinning Cody to set up a match the following year, which they did on Monday Night Raw. The idea was for Cody to get his pin and win back at this year's WrestleMania, because The Rock wasn't available after WrestleMania. The Rock's not available throughout the summer. So the idea was for The Rock to win the final match, and the Saudis are paying massive money for The Rock versus Cody Rhodes. That is my belief, that that is where The Rock will win the championship, either at Crown Jewel or the Royal Rumble, depending on how soon he can semi-regularly appear on television. So that was the plan. And suddenly, The Rock is not losing his match. Suddenly, he's on a press conference saying, oh, it's not even, me and Cody doesn't even need to culminate in a match. But it does, because that's how wrestling works. You build a storyline up towards a match. That's always how it's culminated. And he knows that. The Rock is what? Third generation. He talks about how this business is in his blood. Well, you know that everything culminates in a match. Maybe it doesn't culminate in the match that you are going to lose, movie star, but it's going to culminate in the match that you win, I believe, at the end of the year. And I believe Rock will carry that championship into New Orleans, and he will avoid taking any kind of loss to Cody Rhodes. That's all we're really skipping out here, if the storyline's still on track. And the track was, you're not doing Rock versus Roman. Instead, we're going to create the final boss. We're going to do a tag team match where Cody gets pinned. Cody wins the belt back the next night, ending the run of Roman Reigns. You set up Rock versus Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 1 year in advance on Raw. The Rock, in between that, expressed some concerns that he wouldn't be able to do a 30-minute match, and subsequently we saw him put out three fingers, which led to the change of plans for a triple threat match with Roman being inserted into the match, only so The Rock could do less of the in-ring work due to a lack of prep time. In the end, The Rock decided to completely pull out, citing that John Cena should be the primary focus of WrestleMania. Yet he's back in the fold once again, and suddenly making Cena the prime focus isn't that much of a priority. And John Cena himself has only appeared on Raw once since the Netflix debut, and has only made one other appearance, and that was in the Royal Rumble. So this all sounds like a bag of bullshit. And my theory that The Rock was only trying to avoid his one loss in this story does seem to be gaining more and more steam every day, because he's back now on television. He's back promoting WrestleMania, which he was always going to do. He's going to be a big part of the show, and all he has really done is avoided A, wrestling, and B, losing and putting over this champion who needs a significant win, because there has been zero unpredictability surrounding any of his matches since he became champion, and he has suffered from that because we all knew that the champion who came after Roman Reigns wasn't going to lose in 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 9 months. We knew he wasn't going to lose between 40 and 41. So the lack of intrigue that Roman suffered from in his final year, where we all knew that 39, the win at 39, was going to lead to a defense at 40. And that entire year was somewhat dead, and definitely the worst year of the Bloodline, where there was almost zero intrigue going into any of Roman's matches against either Jey Uso, LA Knight, whoever you put in front of him. We knew Roman was getting to WrestleMania 40. We knew. And Cody Rhodes, unfortunately, has immediately inherited that lack of unpredictability. And that has been the main issue with Cody Rhodes' run. So this is the problem that he's inherited. Zero intrigue. And the intrigue only begins now because of The Rock. There is real intrigue going into WrestleMania 41 because Cody Rhodes won't sell out tonight. He's going to tell The Rock to go fuck himself. The Dusty thing makes it clear because we know Cody's career all centers around using Dusty Rhodes wherever he can to get a pop or to get any relevance. His entire comeback on the Indies has been built on being Dusty's son. And of course, we were going to use Dusty to get this storyline over, and that's going to be the thing that means that Cody tells The Rock to fuck himself tonight, which will lead to The Rock trying to find somebody else. And whoever that person is, whoever goes into WrestleMania, the intrigue will be there. Is this The Rock's champion, or does The Rock make Cody's life so much hell over the build up to WrestleMania, including involving his daughter and his wife and whatever The Rock can do to Cody on the road to WrestleMania, where Cody cracks and he finally sells out at WrestleMania and beats either John Cena or CM Punk. That's where we're going. And it's a lot more intriguing than where we were going when The Rock was probably just, it seemed like The Rock was going to appear at WrestleMania 41, but only to open the show and cut one of these boring promos. And The Rock has been guilty of boring promos. Even this promo about taking his soul, he took way too long to get to the point. The promo on NXT was absolutely pointless, and the one on Raw on Netflix was the worst thing I've seen The Rock do in his career since Rocky Maivia. So this is where we're at, guys, and there's a lot of stuff going on around the main events, and I think even without The Rock on television, the WWE will have enough there to keep people intrigued for a few months. You're going to have a new member of the Judgment Day. You're going to have Aleister Black coming onto television. He's going to re-sign. You're going to have Alexa Bliss and the Wyatt Six starting a storyline over on SmackDown. So there's going to be a lot of stuff going on outside of the main event picture. But this definitely overshadows Jey Uso's win. Or if it is going to be a win against Gunther at WrestleMania, because that match needs something, because that seems to me like it's becoming significantly weaker week by week. We've already done Gunther copying Jay's entrance. We've already done Jay saving people from Gunther attacking Jay during his entrance. We've already had the match on Saturday night's main event. We've had the match 3 times and Gunther's won every single one. How do you fill out this massive gap? Because don't forget, it's March the 1st and the Elimination Chamber is today. Usually we'd be looking at a WrestleMania in the first week of April. We got to get to the 3rd week of April. We have 6 or 7 weeks of TV to navigate, and the interest in Jay versus Gunther, if there even was any, is dying on its arse week by week. So I don't know what we're going to do with that. Is that going to main event any night of WrestleMania? Does that sell tickets for any night of WrestleMania? I think they're going to be very careful to announce some big matches and not allocate the night to each one. So people are essentially gambling until the final week, until we start to see a card pieced together. Because if Jey Uso versus Gunther is a night 1 main event and Cody's defense is on night 2, I could see night 2 quickly getting past configuration 2, going over 60,000. I can see it selling 10, 15,000 more tickets, but I can see night 1 being stuck in the mud. Obviously, if they do go with the triple threat match with Punk, Rollins and Roman, along with John Cena and Cody, I think those matches would need to be separated. I think they need to be separated. But if you go with my storyline where The Rock begins to punish Cody, and one of the punishments is that your title match doesn't main event the show, then Cody and John Cena would open night 2 and the triple threat match would go on last. But if you put the triple threat match on last, which is something I've spoken about on multiple shows between me realising that was booked or at least penciled in, and now, how do you make a triple threat match without the title and main event? What do you put on the line? What's going to happen? Are Punk and Rollins going to be interested in winning the Ula Fala? Is Paul Heyman's career going to be on the line? Is Rollins' career, Roman's career, Punk's career going to be on the line? Do you change this match to the winner receiving a championship match at some point on the show? Does Gunther complain and say that Jey Uso is too much of an easy opponent, and if he wins, he should be rewarded by facing the winner of the Punk Roman Rollins match? That could be a thing. What's the favour? Does the favour play into how this becomes the main event? Paul Heyman's favour to CM Punk, does that play into how it becomes the main event, if it becomes the main event? For me, card B makes a lot more sense. Punk versus Cody, Cena versus Logan Paul, Roman versus Rollins, and Jey versus Gunther. That makes a lot more sense, if I'm honest with you, but it's also still underwhelming. And I mean, both cards are underwhelming, and the favour at that juncture pretty much gets squashed, unless the favour is something also underwhelming, such as if I main event WrestleMania, I want you to accompany me to the ring. That's it. If I ever get to the main event of WrestleMania, I want you in my corner. That's it. That could be the favour. That would be the biggest letdown in wrestling since Vince McMahon was the higher power. I really think that would. So that's really all I wanted to kind of say today. I wanted to chuck out a free show for you guys. I know we haven't touched on the Chamber and the individual matches, but I'm going to do that, as I always do, over on Lock Betting via the betting preview with my son Austin. Now, this is not Lock Betting. We've moved it to the Fight Show. It was the smaller B shows are still going to be on Lock Betting. The betting previews will be on Lock Betting, but now the major shows, which the Chamber is, are now over on the Fight Show on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. We've done good numbers over there. We've tried and tested it. Obviously, we did WrestleMania, SummerSlam, shows like that. They've all done really well. So now the Sports Gambling Podcast Network via the Fight Show is the home for your wrestling betting previews with me and Austin, and maybe occasionally Cav, who I've not only not done a show with, not only have not spoken about wrestling with, but I've not spoken to Cav since the championship games. I don't know where this guy has disappeared to or what he does. I'm sure he still posts out a weekly wrestling show because he sold his soul to Joe Feeney not long ago. And he sold his soul to Joe Feeney for a lot less than Cody Rhodes is going to sell his soul to The Rock for. I mean, he sold it for about $100 a week, probably less. So, yeah, I mean, I will reach out to him at some point and try and do something with Cav relating to WrestleMania, because I literally have no idea what his thoughts are. I think I know enough. I think I can gauge what his thoughts are because he's not going to the show. That's not really a huge barometer because he's I actually don't know how old he is. I know he's older than me. I know he's touching 50, but he acts 70 years old. Like, he doesn't want to move or do anything. So I don't think it's a huge thing necessarily that he's not going to WrestleMania, which is on his doorstep. He's a very, very short flight away from Vegas, and he was previously talking about definitely going to this one, and now he's definitely not going to this one. And I don't know if that would have changed if it had been the Rock Roman or Rock Cody or something that intrigued him, something can't miss. But this WrestleMania certainly isn't it. So I know Cab's not going. I know he's not changed his mind about going, but it would be good to kind of touch base and get his thoughts. So whilst it's good of Austin, I know some of you don't really love when I do a show with a teenager. You would rather get the old interactions between me and Cav. So I'm going to try and hook that up for you guys at least once and for free between now and WrestleMania time. So until then, that's been the Wrestling Informer. Don't forget to check out the Elimination Chamber preview on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. If you do, good luck with all of your bets as always, guys. And thanks for listening.